For some perspective on all this, we turn to CBS News political director Steve Chaggaris. Steve, good morning.
Good morning.
How did this tax deal get done?
Well, you heard Errol talking about it. They're waiting for some Republicans who are holding out on child tax credit. Bob Corker was concerned about the deficits that this will create, but everybody's on board. It's pretty amazing to hear all Republicans in the Senate are backing this thing, which is something we haven't seen with legislation on Capitol Hill at all this year.
Steve, what are the political implications of this bill for Republicans in 2018, given the speed with which this is going to probably be passed through Congress?
So there's two things. One, Republicans have been talking about, since they were unable to get Obamacare repeal and replace through, that there was an impetus to get something done. They have to show voters that they can accomplish something. You remember Paul Ryan earlier in the year on the House side said we have to learn how to govern as a Republican Party, not just be opposition. So this is an opportunity for them to say, we can actually do something, and here's something tangible. However, how is this going to affect the campaigns next year in the midterm? We don't know the answer to that question because voters really won't have a sense, because these tax cuts won't take part until next year.
Right.
And you won't really feel it until you file your taxes in April of 2019, so after the midterm. So,
well, Democrats certainly have talking points for 2018.
Well, they'll have talking points, but they're standard Democratic talking points, right? This is for the wealthy and for corporations,
right.
But that's what they're going to say anyway about Republicans. It's like, will voters feel the impact of this immediately? Probably not. They probably won't feel it until after the midterms.
At the same time, though, the earlier indications are the polls suggest that this is not a popular bill.
That's right.
And could this come back to haunt Republicans the way Obamacare did the Democrats?
It could, but if Republicans, what they're banking on is hoping that there's a boost in the economy because of this, right? They're hoping that bringing these corporate tax rates down, that will continue to help the stock market, maybe boost the economy, and then they can point to that in November and say, hey, look, you got us in here to fix the economy, we have fixed the economy, so they hope they can run on that next year.
An understanding, though, that the majority of these tax cuts don't take effect until 2019.
That's right.
It's going to be be a long
but
here.
Right, but Wall Street's going to be very excited when this bill gets passed,
right.
Correct? And so they'll see the stock market going up, and again, perhaps that image of they could at least argue the economy's improving. Maybe that helps their cause.
What about Doug Jones and Roy Moore here, Steve? The fight is not yet over if you talk to Roy Moore.
It's over for most people. I mean, you had the president come out this week and say it's time to end this thing. Roy Moore is hanging on. I think he's hoping that whatever uncounted ballots will change the count here. But the way the law is in Alabama is if the margin of error is 0.5% or less, it would trigger an automatic recount. It's not going to get to that point. What Roy Moore is hoping is perhaps he could start his own recount. However, the laws are fairly clear in Alabama that you can't do that in a Senate race. However, some people say you might be able to do it. It would cost him a lot of money to do it. He doesn't have any money left. So I don't know who would pay for a recount even if he could do it.
What's the feeling in Washington about this race? Was Roy Moore an outlier, or was the fact that the president and Steve Bannon could not deliver this seat, a safe Republican seat, is that an indication of where things may stand next year at the midterms? Well,
that's a really good question. And so Republicans have been saying from the get-go on this that there's no good outcome for Republicans on this. They lose a seat in the Senate. When Jones is sworn in, it's down to a 51-49 majority, which is not good for their prospects in terms of passing legislation. But in terms of politics, at least the silver lining in this, you're hearing from Republicans, is this really hurt Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon went full behind Roy Moore, was unable to get him a victory. In fact, lost a seat in a very Republican state because of the quality of a candidate in Roy Moore. Yes, he's an outlier in some sense, but you saw the president go out there and try to campaign for him, wasn't able to push him ahead. Democrats seem to think this is going to be a prediction of what's going to happen next year in the midterms because it's a referendum on President Trump. But Roy Moore had a lot of problems. It wasn't just President Trump and Steve Bannon. Roy Moore he was a flawed candidate.
Well, one would assume, though, that the Senate races that the Democrats are going to be fighting for in 2018, we're going to hear the name Roy Moore. He will effectively be used as a litmus test.
Yes, but the nice thing for Republicans is that Roy Moore won't be in office. That'll be in the rearview mirror for a while by November next year.
It's going to be an interesting next year.
Oh, absolutely. Can't wait.
Steve Chaggaris, thanks as always,
Thanks.
Steve.